Hi and welcome to our PensionsAge video interview. I'm Laura Blows, editor of PensionsAge, and joining me today to talk about data and systems for pension schemes is John Broker, Director of ITM Limited. So John, there's been a lot of focus on data quality in pension schemes lately, I'd say, and for administrators of workplace pensions, they've got a lot of challenges at the moment in terms of new regulatory requirements. Now, as ITM really are at the coalface of this, helping pension schemes manage these issues, perhaps you could provide me with an overview, just to begin with, the issues that you're seeing for pension schemes.
Sure, absolutely. Well, you're absolutely right. We are very much working at the coalface. I have to say, none of these issues, with the exception of auto-enrolment, are new, but it's only now that we found trustees and employers are addressing these things, and I think that's interesting. A lot of the work that we're doing is very much around auto-enrolment from an admin perspective. And from a data perspective, it's helping trustees and sponsors get their data in shape to address the challenges we've got in this new world of pensions, where we've got liability reduction, regulator, lots of different things, lots of different challenges. That's where ITM fits in, and that's what we do.
Okay, so there seem to be a lot of issues for pension schemes to manage. Perhaps we can look at these in a bit more detail. For instance, you mentioned auto-enrolment, which, as you know, is a hot topic at the moment, and will continue to do so for a good few years yet at least. So perhaps you could talk me through what you would advise for those schemes looking at the setup process for auto-enrolment.
Okay, yeah, I mean, a lot of the big companies have now staged, and I've heard various commentaries about how they've done that and gone through that, and they've been incredibly well managed with big budgets. But let's look at the smaller employers and how they're going.
Yes, they might be the ones that have a few more problems maybe, or don't have the big budgets to actually manage auto-enrolment with ease.
I think you're right, and I think, Laura, the thing is that people tend to ignore the admin and systems element. They've first of all got to decide what they're going to use an investment vehicle. Difficult choice enough. But what about the administration? What I think people should be focusing on is, firstly, an evaluation of their current processes. How does the payroll work? What's the HR system? How will all that be brought together to successfully enrol people? And how are you going to communicate with your workforce? So a lot of the work we're doing is by undertaking that evaluation and then providing middleware through a tool that we use called EASE. And EASE is set up to bring all of those things together and help people through the middleware conduct a well-ordered and very timely implementation. Now, there's quite a lot to that, starting with the initial evaluation. You need to get a project team together, you need to have that evaluation, you need to look at your systems infrastructure, and you need to try and understand what it's going to cost you. So good middleware can do all of these things and communicate with the newly enrolled employees to tell them how they've been enrolled and what to do about it next.
What kind of timescale would you say pension schemes should be looking at? How much of a big challenge is that?
Sure, it is a big challenge, as you said. That's a great way to put it. I think my experience is that people leave things too late, and what we would recommend is at least 6 months before you even think about the actual staging date, you need to start your admin prep for that. And that begins with all of the things that I've just described, really, and it is quite an arduous process. So the message there is prepare now or prepare to fail.
Strong words there.
Well, that's the way it is. I mean, I can see from experience, I think, you know, a good 6 months is needed, and it's getting the thing on the agenda amongst so many difficult issues for employers to manage in recessionary climate like we have.
Yes. So the timescale's beginning to look around now, really, for the smaller to medium schemes?
Yeah, a lot of them will be staging in 2014.
Yes.
I don't think it's even on their horizon right now. Finance directors are busy people running difficult climate to operate business in. So now is the time to start that preparation, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, maybe in conjunction with that is another issue you mentioned earlier, which is that of data. Perhaps you could just give me a bit more of an overview of why there's been this focus on data now in particular. As you said, it's an old issue.
It's an old issue. It's been around years, hasn't it? And you and I have seen these things come and go over the years we've worked together. But yeah, absolutely. Look, you know, the thing that's put this on the agenda is the pension regulators' new guidance, which came out in June 2010, actually. The first time trustees had targets to meet, and that was 2012. And in addition to that, the regulatory piece, we've seen this advent of new types of pension solutions in buy-ins, buyouts, pension increase exchange exercises. Lots of things that demand data to be right and right first time. So that's really put this on the map. When we started ITM 10 years ago, we were doing much the same work, but much less of it. So all of these things have driven and created a lot more impetus and focus on pension scheme data, and it has to be a good thing.
Yes, I'm quite curious though about data quality issues. For instance, I assume obviously the pension schemes were ticking along fine on the admin side with their data, but now that they're looking at doing these exercises, actually they're finding their data isn't up to scratch. Why is that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think there's been a bit of a head in the sand attitude about it, if you know what I'm saying. So, for a start, people have to address it now. The regulator requires you to address that, right?
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. Whilst we can hold our data to be fit for day-to-day admin, we can muddle along. We can go down to the basement and get a microfiche out, or for day-to-day stuff. When it comes to a liability reduction project, our data has to be on that system, and it absolutely has to be bang on correct. Now, let me give you an example there. A lot of organisations will come to us and say, is our data ready to transact, for example, a buyout or a pension increase exchange exercises? The key things that you need to be looking at there are your GMPs correct? Are your pension splits correct between the pre and post 97 accrued amounts? And regrettably, the state of the nation is that they're not always as good as they could be. So that creates quite a big exercise to clean those data items up. Yeah. And they've never been addressed before. So there are shocks there for trustees and sponsors in terms of time, effort, cost, all of the things you need to do to get ready to transact.
Okay, perhaps you could talk about a bit more about what issues you found with these companies going about a data cleansing exercise. What practical issues have there been? Yeah,
I mean, I think first of all there is a reluctance to address it, okay? Because let's face it, it's not the most exciting topic out there amongst the array of things we can do in terms of pension projects.
Is there fear as well of cost issues maybe as well?
Absolutely.
Time and cost.
Definitely. People need to understand the benefits weighted against the actual cost of doing such an exercise. I can give you some examples there. An organisation transacting a buyout recently, we found that up to 30% of their records were incorrect. So by actually going through the data analysis and data cleanse process, we saved them a considerable amount of money, and I'm talking millions of pounds in reduced buyout premiums. But it's not just about cost, it's more about de-risking your data and understanding just what you've got there. And there is this assumption, which is arguably incorrect, that our data will be all right. After all, we've been getting along for years.
Why
now is it a problem? And so it's a shock, and the cost of cleaning can be quite a lot, but it's absolutely nothing compared to the saving you'll get back by addressing it.
So what kind of benefits would you say that a pension scheme could achieve there by undertaking this data cleansing?
Yeah, well, I think for final salary schemes, it's generally acknowledged that legacy data hasn't always been as good as it could be. So I think the benefit to the trustees is, after all, they have a duty to pay the right benefit to the right member at the right time. So by actually going through this exercise, they can have some certainty that they can discharge their fiduciary obligations much more accurately and with a lot more certainty and perhaps comfort around that. From an employer's perspective, it will enable them to transact a liability reduction project. So for DB, there's a clear case and clear benefits. For DC, often data is better because schemes are newer and therefore we haven't had quite as much time to get it wrong.
Yeah, less paper records.
Yeah, but nevertheless, the same principles apply. It's about how good is my data, can I discharge my obligations correctly, and what do I need to do to make sure I have that comfort.
Okay. So perhaps moving on from data issues itself, there's a lot of other challenges that administrators are having to look at. I mean, for instance, recently there's the issue of GMPs and the announcement we're waiting for how they can be converted into a scheme benefit. Yeah. I mean, what do you think about that? Is it realistic, and what should trustees and employees be looking at to handle this?
Sure, yeah. I think the DWP have announced that in 2014 what we will have to do is equalise GMPs and then convert them into an ordinary scheme benefit. A worthy aim, perhaps, and perhaps a good solution. Yeah, but it's going to be a headache. I think what we're going to see is a rush on HMRC time because before you can undertake those equalisation calculations, your GMPs have to be present and correct to begin with. So now is the time to do your GMP reconciliation and get them right in preparation for the equalisation. If it goes ahead on time, as DWP have said it will do. I think the actual methodology for converting into ordinary benefit is very vague at the moment. So we are expecting more direction, and I think most sponsors and trustees are going to welcome that.
Yeah. So in the meantime, it's a wait and see maybe, or can you start preparing now for what might be happening?
Yeah, no, you need to prepare now, and you need to build that in to, arguably a good data project where GMP focus is high on the agenda.
So how perhaps can they build this into their data process? How can you ensure that your data is up to date for all of these issues?
Yeah, right. Okay, so I think this starts at a slightly higher level. And I think what people need to do is just take a moment out and think, well, what are we doing with the scheme? Where are we going with it? Are we on a flight path to closure, arguably, liability reduction right the way through? Number of considerations there: data, admin, communication, costs, funding. So the starting point has to be to think about all the things that we want to do with our scheme and then fit our data project objectives to meet those as they occur throughout the timeline that is envisaged over the short, medium and longer term.
So that's probably for most pension schemes quite a lot of projects and challenges for them to deal with. So is there the software and support available really to help them with this? Has the software caught up with the issues that pension schemes are facing?
Right, well, it's a bit of a bugbear of mine. I think
known for being modern, really, with technology. That's an issue, I think.
It is an issue, isn't it? And if we look at other financial service industries, like, say, banking, where we've got online everything.
And have done for many years.
Yeah, exactly. And, banks are not exactly flavour of the month, but they do provide good online availability. There is a reluctance to invest in good systems. Finance directors will naturally think, why should I spend money on good technology? Why should I spend pension budget on a new admin software package or an auto-enrolment system? My view about that is we just have to do this. We have to move with the times. We're all involved in managing pension schemes. We all have an obligation to each other and to members to make sure that our automation comes up to speed. So they don't have to cost the earth. There are very cost-effective ways of implementing really good technology for auto-enrolment, pension admin or data management. So my view on that is that we must move with the times and create budget, invest now. Don't fall further behind.
Okay, so it seems that for pension schemes, they have many projects to deal with, many issues, but the software and support available to help them with the admin side of this, is there to go to companies to help with this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are a number of great products out there, including our own, hasten to add. And again, it is very much getting that focus on it. It's a difficult climate, isn't it, with FDs very much focusing on funding and matters actuarial investment. The admin side of it, the technology side, data, it does tend to get relegated to below that radar. And again, as I said earlier, it's often not the most exciting project and spend of money. But as I said earlier, if you look, for example, at the number of complaints TPAS receive relative to pension admin, it's very interesting that they grow year on year. Now, is that because people are more aware of these issues and then complain more regularly? Or is it that we just haven't got this right still? A good measure, arguably, of good admin would be to see a reduction in the number of complaints TPAS are receiving, but we're not seeing that. And a lot of these things are about basic data and system failure and errors.
Okay, so data, as you said, is rising up the agenda in terms of importance for those managing pension schemes, but yet it still needs to be raised high still, I'd say.
It's going to. We've had this focus from the regulator on common data, which is fairly basic stuff, and that's very good, and we welcome that, as most people in the admin community would do. It's created good focus, it's going on the trustee agenda. The regulator's now monitoring compliance with that issue, so it'd be interesting to see just what comes out of that and how tough a stance they take on it in terms of policing it, and trustees that have been errant and not complied, just how hard a line are they going to take? So it's very much something that's going to come to the fore in the press, I would think, very soon. But more importantly, the regulator has now decided they're going to focus on what's called conditional data. And to me, that is a very good initiative because we're actually going to have a focus on the data items that make the benefits tick, make them work, make them fit for purpose, shall we say. Now, that's going to be a very expensive and time-consuming exercise for all concerned, but it's absolutely the right focus. So the regulator's got this spot on.
So improving the quality of the data will end up improving the quality of the pension scheme overall for members?
Yeah, whether it be for auto-enrolment or whether it be for administering a pension scheme, clearly having the right data has got a lot of benefits. Let's just look at some of them right now. First of all, good data is good management information. Being trustees is like running a business. You need good MI. Your liabilities are reflected in your data. What about funding? If your data is right, your liabilities are arguably in better shape than they were before you put your data right. So one could argue that your funding is going to be more accurate. And for the members and day-to-day admin, for the administrator, it makes their job a lot easier, and it is a difficult and thankless task administering pension schemes. So ultimately, the key thing is that members will get better service. It's not just about the speed of service, it's about accuracy. And I would very much like to see pension admin standards rising and to see those TPAS complaints falling.
Okay, so it looks like things will be changing for the better, hopefully.
I think so. I think we've got a way to go. It is difficult to do all these things. As I say, sponsors and pension managers, trustees have got lots of competing priorities and limited budgets. But for once, we've got the right focus on the right issues from an admin perspective.
That sounds good. Thank you, John.
Thanks, it's a pleasure.
And thank you for watching this PensionsAge video interview.